Mayoral announcement across the various hung municipalities. Have the political party agreements fielded the best candidates for the municipalities? Political analyst Professor Steven Friedman joins me now to unpack this. Prof, good evening and thank you very much for your time. I mean, I don't have to tell you, I mean, you know, these have not been very easy coalition negotiations. In fact, if you take what Herman Mashaba said moments ago, that they were snubbed by the DA at least 3 meetings that they tried to set up with the other political parties, and right up till the end, nothing actually came out of it. So, Prof, before I get your answer, it looks like they're ready to announce the mayor for the city of Johannesburg. So let's take you there live.
Okay, I can tell you before that.
Those are live visuals there coming from that gathering. All right, there. Those are the pictures that we are seeing there live from the gathering there in the city of Johannesburg. Mpopala, it looks like, has been announced as the new mayor of the city of Johannesburg. Professor Steven Friedman, well, it is Mpopala then who will be taking up the mayoral chain in the city of Johannesburg.
Yeah, Thabo, I don't think the identities of the mayors is that important, quite frankly. I think what is important is that this has not been a particularly good day and a particularly good time for party politics in this country. I mean, first of all, anybody who continues to argue that we should allow politicians a secret vote, which in effect allows them to vote any way they like without having to account to the people who voted for them, must look at what happened today. I mean, I was watching your channel earlier today, and your reporter at the Johannesburg Mayor Council meeting was saying that none of the parties would tell him who they'd voted for. Well, for heaven's sake, these are not private individuals. These are people who were voted into office by other South Africans. And the other South Africans are entitled to know who they voted for so that they can decide whether they want to vote for them again. Yeah. I think the other issue here is that it's going to be very difficult in the future to believe anything any politician says. Because if you compare what has been happening today with what politicians were standing in front of cameras and microphones saying a day or two ago, there's no relationship between them. Yeah. You have a situation where politicians stand up and announce agreements, but the agreements are not honored, or they say that they're at war with each other and they're not. So there's very little credibility in this process, unfortunately. Yeah. I think the third point, which has to be underlined here, which is something I've been stressing recently, is the fact that they've elected mayors and speakers does not mean that they've set the groundwork for a stable government in any of these councils. Yeah. Yeah. So they might be able to get a majority for a particular candidate now, but when it actually comes to sitting down and governing, it's very difficult to see any of this holding for very long, quite frankly.
Is this a good place to be for the Democratic Alliance? I mean, at some point they said we've learned from the previous informal arrangement with the EFF that this time around we actually want a solid agreement in place that outlines how the coalition is going to work. Well, they didn't get that, but they still got the votes from the EFF as well as Action SA, at least to secure that majority to get mayorship in Ekurhuleni as well as in the city of Johannesburg. Is that a good place to be?
For the DA?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose for the next day or two, yes. But after that, as I say, they have to assemble a coalition, they have to govern. I think the best answer to your question, Thabo, in Joburg and Tshwane, for example, is given that you're no doubt correct that the DA candidates were elected with EFF votes, do we imagine the EFF spontaneously agreeing to everything a DA council does for the next 5 years? Because if we don't, and logic would suggest that we shouldn't, then this isn't going to last terribly long. because at some point there's going to be a fallout, and at that point, Nelson Mandela Bay over the last 5 years and Swane for part of the next 5 years, we're going to have instability, we're going to have possibly disruptions. And part of the problem here is that, nothing is being done in public, as I said earlier. Any party is entitled to work with another party in our democracy, but you owe it to your voters to stand up and tell voters the truth and say, we've decided to work with them. And then your voters can decide whether they're comfortable with that or not. But at the moment, really, voters have to put up with whatever is agreed in dark alleys by politicians who feel no obligation to tell the people who voted for them what they've done or why they've done it.
Now, the shenanigans, one would say, whether man-made or really it's just coincidence in eThekwini. What do you make of them? I mean, there was a breach of security. People who were not meant to be there gained access to it. That is ordinary party members. But also then there was this electricity challenge.
Well, electricity in South Africa at the moment is not a sure thing. I think we have to give them the benefit of the doubt there too. But once again, this process, I think members of the public should be encouraged to attend these meetings if they possibly can, to see what their representatives are doing. So I don't have any problem with that. But when you have a suggestion that people have been brought in deliberately in order to influence proceedings, obviously that's a problem. I think the general theme at the moment is that the politicians seem very good at looking after themselves and not very good at looking after the people who voted for them. And that's our problem at the moment. That's why we have a low poll in our last election. It's not a happy situation to have when, people feel that, you give your vote to somebody and then the person or the party you give the vote for feels that they can do what they like and they don't have to worry about what you think.
Yeah. Nelson Mandela Bay, is that coalition put together by some sticky tape and Prit or something? Will it hold?
No, I don't. I can't see any particular reason why it should hold. Once again, it's this usual thing of, the only thing we know publicly is that the ANC had a deal with the Patriotic Alliance. And the ANC and the IFP had a deal, although given what happened in Newcastle, for example, it's not quite clear whether that deal is standing up. And incidentally, I don't think it's impossible that the IFP voted for DA candidates in various places, which really suggests, that the IFP document which they issued didn't accurately describe their position. But no, I don't think Nelson Mandela Bay is vaguely stable, but I don't think Ekurhuleni is stable. I wonder what's going to happen in eThekwini, and I certainly don't think Joburg and Swane is stable either. So, what is happening at the moment generally is that, as you correctly put it, a bit of sticky tape are being put over the fact that we don't have solid coalition agreements between parties which can tell voters where they stand and ensure that we have stable governments over the next 5 years.
And how does this then play out for the Democratic Alliance who are enjoying mayorship via EFF votes? For example, the insourcing policy, one of the policies that the Democratic Alliance heavily criticized of Mayor Mashaba having agreed to because of the influence and the pressure of the EFF. Do they keep that still in place? Do they take it out? What would that result in?
Well, I think that rather depends on the EFF and perhaps to a lesser extent on Action South Africa. The EFF has insisted that one of its achievements during the DA mayorship of Joburg was to achieve insourcing. Well, if that's not going to happen, then the EFF has a choice to make. Either it could put up with it, in which case it's not going to look very good, or it's going to have to sink the coalition because the DA's attitude is that they don't favor insourcing. The one party at the moment who doesn't seem to be having to make any concessions at all is the DA on the opposition side, but I can't see that lasting very well either. Unless the EFF wants to be ridiculed by its own voters and have them leave it in droves, then at some point it's going to have to take a stand on the issues which it says it's concerned about, at which stage the whole house of cards comes tumbling down.
Prof, appreciate your time and thank you very much for joining us. Let's take you now